All right, we are back again with another great episode of Black Belts and Boardrooms. I am excited about this episode. I've told everybody, I was in Vegas last week. I told people in Vegas about the episode. It is exciting. Amir, who do we have today?
Oh my gosh, Renard. I am looking forward to this call all day. Part of the reason is, you don't get to meet somebody on the other side of the professional sports arena. You're somebody who is making those big deals and wheeling and dealing with the executives. And let me tell you, just from my perspective alone, and I'm sure there are others with, even more richer perspectives, I find that to be totally fascinating, because we don't get to see scale when it comes to what does it take to work with the NFL? What does it take to work with the ML, NBA, MLB, you name it. So our guest today, who I'm very happy to introduce, is Dr. Dan Kaufman. He is not only an expert in this area, but he's somebody who I actually enjoy reading his content on a regular basis. So, Dr. Dan, welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited. Got to know you guys, and look forward to this conversation. Be very transparent, and look forward I can help with the audience and any questions I'm here to answer. And look forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Dan, I'll throw you a softball to use a baseball metaphor. Tell us a little bit about yourself and origin story, as much as little, but just a little bit about yourself so we know who you are.
Yeah. My basic background is I've been in sports entertainment for over 20 years. I have opportunities to work in minor league hockey. I work for 3 NFL teams. I work for an NBA team. I work for a mid-major collegiate team as well as a major collegiate team. So I've had opportunities to look at every aspect of what we call commercial. So what does that mean? That's anything from sales, marketing, licensing, retail, merchandise, international rights, stadium naming rights, anything at all really from a revenue aspect, commercial aspect. I've touched everything at all 4 major levels in North America, from minor league to major league to mid-major to major college. So I've had a very unique opportunity, and it's been a fun career so far. And now I'm actually on the brand side with Ordr, and actually have my own consultancy where I advise other brands on their sponsorship strategy, their go-to-market strategy, as well as I coach other aspirational people who want to get into sports or who want to learn more about revenue and sponsorship and everything. So it's been cool. And I also have executives that I also mentor to as well that come to me on everything. So it's been a fun little journey right now where I'm at and based here in Seattle. And it's been a good journey, but that's me in a nutshell. I've had, 4 degrees, double major at Hamilton College. I got an MBA, MS in marketing while I was in Tampa with the Buccaneers at University of Tampa. My doctorate was at University of South Florida with my dissertation on internal, external factors of sponsorship sales cycles in North America. So it's been I get asked a lot of unique things. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, Dr. Dan, I feel like using the word polymath here because you've certainly done quite a bit and you've seen a lot. I don't think Jerry Maguire, if I use that as a pop culture reference, would do you justice in any way or shape or form.
It's funny with Jerry Maguire and agents. I've worked with agents and endorsement deals. So it's a very I think a lot of people when they get into sports, they just are fans. I know Renard, Saints fan, right? I know that a lot of people just are looking at the game and they're having a good time. They're here at their house, at the game, at a bar. I look at the event completely different. And I think a lot of people in my industry look at everything completely different from a production point of view, from what they're doing at the game day experience, how the fans are enjoying their experience, from what, commercials are being used to what activations, that's marketing opportunities, what they're doing, how they're going in and really making their fans have the best experience with their expendable income. Because what they do, because they get, if you look at anything in sports entertainment, people go in, they use their expendable income. That could be a sporting event, music event, they go to the zoo, theme park, etc. So I look at a lot of things like that from a revenue aspect and commercial aspect are totally different. And a lot of people in my industry too look at it the same way. So it's again, I've had the opportunity to have that but my lens is a little bit different though when I look at everything, and it's been fun so far. Just again, my wife's been knows now because she's been around me for over 10 years, 12 years now. And so I look at things a lot differently. But yeah.
So how should we think about, what you do? So I'm looking at this from a fan's perspective, obviously. I don't have your perspective as the guy behind the scenes who's looking at how do I make this more memorable for the fan? Because I think I hear you say that. How do I make it more memorable for the fan? You're spending all this disposable income. So what are some of the things about that aspect that really gets you excited when you make these deals, when you talk to potential partners, who could be working on an experience, a brand activation, as you called it? How should we look at it, and from your perspective?
Here's a perfect example is for anyone who's a sports fan, right? I'll use sports, for example. You have kids, right? Obviously you go kids, where do they get born for the most part? Hospitals, right? So an example would be, I'll use an example when I was at the Jets was, anyone who would go to, who's going to obstetrician, they're about to have a child. Next thing you know, they get born. Next thing you know, they're wrapped in a Jets blanket, right? And it's that first memorable experience where, if they're a Jets fan or any other fan, Saints fan, Giants fan, et cetera, but taking that experience and tie it to emotion to something that you're tied to that was passed along from your father, mother, uncle, grandfather that goes in that watched the games in the next generation to the great, 2 generations ago. So obviously, as us as human beings, we are gathered by our likes and interests, and for that is sport. So how do people become fans? They have experiences either with friends, family who are fans from there. So really seeing that transformation of that casual fan to an avid fan, and that get passed along to the next generation, that means the team's done well. And again, it's that cultural connection based off everything. So, you see this with people going to Disney World, right? Or Disneyland, there's so many different ways where, everyone goes to Disneyland, they all get the Mickey bunny ears, right? Or no, not bunny ears, mouse ears. Sorry.
Yeah,
The mouse ears, yeah.
Sorry, mouse ears, not bunny ears. I'm thinking Bugs Bunny. But again,
Sure, they sell those too.
yeah. And so I would say though, no matter what though, based off everything of where we as humans, those traditions are passed on. And even looking at rivalries, right? You can look at any rivalries, like you hate another city, it could be Eagles Giants, or it could be Yankees Boston, right? Like, the Red Sox. So like it's just very interesting when, fans are going to games, they're painted in their face, they've painted their face, they're in their jerseys, they're extravagant. I mean, this is how they get away from their reality, and it's when they take their other family members and friends. So I think that's been the fun part, really, of seeing that and how you create a really good avid fan base. And you create an avid fan base, what happens? They follow the team, they follow them on social, they go to the game, they go to their partners, they engage with every channel possible that could be direct with the team, or they go to ESPN or any other websites, Barstool, et cetera, et cetera.
So were you ever a super fan before you became interested in the back end of all of these things?
Huh. So I was raised in Arizona. Okay. So I am diehard Arizona. I was at the World Series a couple of years ago when they were in the World Series. I went there. Yeah, so I'm all Arizona, but I'll tell you this, it goes when you work in sports, and it's kind of weird. It's literally paycheck over passion, because it's very interesting now, because I've worked for a multitude of teams, and even with Ordr, like, I have, the Pittsburgh Penguins behind us. They were our first major partner that we did. They're behind us completely. I have a Vegas Golden Knights. I have a couple other teams that we've done with. So it kind of goes away. And it's been funny, even now I'm the brand side now, like I'm rooting for the brands that the teams that we're sponsors with. So again, it's, I have gone away from that. And look, do I follow the D-backs? Yeah, always. Do I follow, a couple other teams? Yeah, the Suns. Yeah. I wish I had the Coyotes, but they're in Utah now, right? Like I have a Roanoke jersey when they came in 1997, right? But no, I would say just from my career, it's been a lot more business focused. And I think a lot of people in this industry have just been diehard of their team, because you're involved with it 365, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so that's been my area. But, I always go back to Arizona, though. But like that's just how I am. It's just where I'm at right now. If I ever, you know, go on a team side, I'm gonna go back on the team of rooting for the team, right? So it's a very different lens than it is, and I am a fan like what everyone else is listening to right now, and like you two gentlemen.
Yeah. That's I honestly have only had one experience where I was trying to negotiate a deal, but it wasn't even me directly negotiating it, and it was in Brazil with the Maracanã Stadium. Another story I'll share another day. But yeah, this is going back to 2015 when I was doing a multinational startup. We were doing a thing in Brazil with the Maracanã Stadium. We had the whole lounge. We had branding. We even got one of the local celebrities to come up on ESPN down in Brazil to come and do a little promo thing. But today's episode is not about me. It's about you, Dr. Dan. So when we think about these deals, right? So in my head now, I'm thinking about, hey, if I'm in sales or if I'm in marketing and I'm trying to land some big client, it seems to me, just listening to you speak, that there's a whole different mindset. Like, what is that mindset shift thinking about the deal at your level versus, say, just any other deal in any other area?
So great question, and I would say this, and I'm gonna go a little more economics on this. Okay, it's gonna be very, one of the hardest books I read when I was getting my master's degree was Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. The hardest book I ever read.
Mm.
Took me about almost 16 months to read. It's in Old English. He's the father of economic thought of what we know today globally is in the 1600s when he wrote this. One of the things that he always said was, everyone's always in for their own self-interest. So he talks about this theory called the invisible hand. The invisible hand drives completely of the self-interest. So whenever I always do anything at all in deals, I always try to put it in their perspective. I always look in, I'm like, what are they trying to accomplish? What is the end game? What is the goal? And that's part of my DNA. It really has been. And, you know, a true partnership is if not everyone wins, everyone loses a little bit but they come at a point. And it's one of those things I always put in there. It's like you have to ask a lot of questions. You have to be curious. You have to learn their objectives. You have to learn their KPIs. You have to learn about who are their competitors. You have to look at everything, their complements. You have to look at everything in general. It's Porter's Five Forces. It's a great terminology. You should definitely everyone look it up. I really, between that and Porter's Five Forces and understanding their business, what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish, what's the end game, then we can always work backwards. And then I think then it's like, okay, based on what you told me, you're trying to accomplish X, Y, and Z. Let's figure that out. And then my goal, if I'm on the selling center and they're on the buying center, how do we come together and make a solution? The greatest thing I will tell you right now is probably one of the most, I love doing this, is when you can take a thought, then make it tangible, then you execute it, and then it becomes reality. And then next thing you know, you're at a game and we created this from nothing to now we're executing. And you're with that business partner and you're looking at like, look what we did. And to me, that's been my motivation. I think if you really, again, everyone's going to try to do the big deals, right? And again, I get what you're saying though, Amir, but like, if you do everything right, the money will come. And that's been my whole philosophy on just really being solution oriented, listening to the customer, asking questions and being curious. But I'm going to say this one more time, do your research. And I will tell you this right now, internal analysis, external analysis, learn, read. You're going to talk to different people in the deal, who's in the stakeholders, who's your white knight, who's the decision maker, what's the timing, what's the process of the decision. And then once you get into, let's say, a budget, okay, if we're going to try to accomplish this, it's going to be around this range. And that's when I go in, does that make sense? Close-ended question, yes or no? And then we figure out from there. So I always feel like, doing big deals, yeah, that's part of it, but you got to go in the right mindset to where you got to know your stuff. and you got to be curious and ask questions. And that's how I've done some really cool things over my career, from, club naming rights, international deals, a lot of cool things. But that's what I'll tell you for anyone in this podcast listening, to you two gentlemen, do the work. I can't, I can't, everyone now uses Chat GPT, and that's great. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great because now it's actually efficient. But like, before Chat GPT 10, 15, 20 years ago, I'm going out, I'm just doing my research, right? And again, it's kind of cool now doing Chat GPT and AI, and it helps, but don't get lazy though. Don't rely on it. Use other sources besides Chat GPT. And I would tell you, that is what I love AI, but do the work. I think
Yeah.
that's one thing is just like, people are now trying to find the easiest path. And don't get me wrong, it's cool, but do the work though. And that's the only thing I would say for anyone on this podcast is, you do the work, you do your research. I think that you're 95% ahead of everyone else. And I can't even tell you, when I talk to Fortune, 5,000, 500, Fortune 100 CEOs or C-suite people, they're like, wow, you actually know our company. I'm like, yeah, I read your 10K. And like, yeah, I read your Q. I'm like, yeah, I saw this. And I'm like, yeah, I want to learn your business. I can only do so much from secondary information, but how can I get primary information from you? So I hope that answers your question though. Really, how do I look at deal structure? How do I actually create unique ways to obviously make solutions for my customers?
Yeah, it absolutely does. So what I heard from you, Dr. Kaufman, is stick to the fundamentals. You have to know your customer. Start with the end in mind, because then you can work yourself backwards into a strategy and execution plan. And lastly, get real with critical thinking. Don't let the machine do the work for you. You have to do the work. So those are the takeaways that I, got from all that you gave to us.
You said probably my two favorite words: critical thinking. And I'm going to say this for, maybe I'm a little bit older generation, but I'll tell you, anyone at all, critical thinking skills will get you so much farther in life instead of taking the easy path. So, Amir, yeah, great call outs.
Fantastic.
I agree with that. And Dr. Dan, I have to get you to tell our audience, because I hate to say it, there are people who don't know what a 10K is. Can you tell the audience what the 10K is? Because there are people who don't know what that is.
So, it's literally a financial statement that all public companies have to disclose. And I will tell you this about 10Ks. You can not only find a lot about the company, but you find things out about industries and what industries are thriving, what industries are not thriving. What are now the tastes and preferences of people who are today versus 2 years ago or 5 years ago? And it was fun. I'll tell you this. I never even knew what a 10K was till I was in grad school. And then I applied that to learning more, and I got coached very well. It's like, you should definitely look at their financial statements. And I learned how to do it, and then I applied it. And I will tell you, it's free. It's out there. It's on the website. Go on the investor.com or investor page of a company. It's all there. And I'll tell you this too. You know what's a fun one? And again, here's another one: is listen to quarterly earnings calls. Those are fun, because then all of a sudden you're hearing from the C-suite what's going on, what happens, what are they looking forward to, and those are fun. And you can go on CNBC, you can go on Bloomberg, Fox Business, and you can hear like, hey, quarterly reports are going in. Jump on the quarterly call and just listen. And I do that with certain industries that if I'm working on, it might not be the company I'm working with, it might be a competitor. But then guess what? I'm learning what the industry's saying. And again, that's just, I'm old school like that. And I think there's so much information out there that people just don't know how to dig, critically think, and actually go in and just see like what is actually going on right now in the commerce of an industry within a region. For example, if a company is doing well in North America, but they're looking to kind of expand in the Middle East, well, where are they going into? Okay, Maybe then you're having international rights for a team that you're in Abu Dhabi. And maybe how do you set up something where, hey, this company is now trying to expand into the UAE? Then all of a sudden you make those parallels of what you're doing. I think, and that's been a fun part, I would say, of like really going in and just learning. I think that goes back to me in general. I'm always a learner, and I'm always learning more, and I don't stop. And I think it's part of my DNA.
I agree. I agree. And for us, from a technical standpoint, it's similar. We always say, "What problem are we trying to solve?"
Mhm.
Before we start moving forward, trying to bring something in. And I always tell people, if you want to be a great executive, one of them is know the 10K. You know, the if you know the business, the better off you will be. And one of those things is a 10K. And that's why I wanted to highlight that, because I've talked to people and you'll say 10K, and there's some people who just don't know because they're just not into that part of the area of the business. A lot of people are heads down, let me work. I'm not trying to figure out all the other things. So it's important to know the 10K, especially when you start getting to a higher level. So I wanted to make sure to highlight that out. But one of the major questions I have, you have worked in NFL, the baseball, etc. What far as sports has been most intriguing to you? What have you had fun at? Was it in the NFL? Was it Major League Baseball, etc.? Where was it that you feel like, man, I'm having fun doing this?
Fun everywhere, brother. I've had fun everywhere. I've had a fun journey so far. It's different. I really would tell you this. What I really like is open up new geographic markets and international expansion. So if you actually look at this, and this is kind of fun, I'm going to explain something to you real quick about sport. I'm going to ask a question to both of you. And I just want to see your thoughts on this, and then we'll go from there. Why do you think soccer slash football overseas and basketball are the most global sports?
That's a great question. Now, I let me put my 2 cents in. I'll let you go, Amir, after that.
Okay.
Now, am I a major soccer fan? No, but I see the entertainment in it. I see why it's so popular. The being at that stadium is different than any other sport combined. When I see that, I wanna go, and I'm not even a big soccer fan. So I can understand the appeal and why so many people are into soccer. Soccer is one of the few sports where you can become this international icon in soccer, but it's hard to make it to the top level of soccer. So that's why there's so many clubs and you have to move up. That's my take on it. I'm not an avid sports fan as far as soccer is concerned. You know, there's some teams you just know, even if you're not in soccer. But I see the experience in it and understand why it's so popular from that aspect.
Amir, I want to hear your opinion why basketball and soccer are the most global sports. And then we give you the answer,
Accessibility.
and you'll see in a second.
Yeah. So it's accessibility. I don't have to have riches to go play that game. In fact, I could tell you a personal story. When I used to I went to Catholic school for a while, and we didn't have a soccer ball. We would just find any old rock that was sitting around, kick it around, and that was soccer or football. So it's accessibility to me. Even in the Philippines, as poor as that country is, basketball is their love of the game. And you could find a ball anywhere in any neighborhood.
You nailed it. It's easy. It's simple. You just need a ball and a goal or a ball and a hoop. Why is football and hockey so hard? Because you need all the equipment. And it's very hard in American football, not in Germany and the UK, but to have all the equipment, to have the complex rules. There's not a lot of complex rules in basketball and soccer. So, Amir, you nailed it. Is a true accessibility where anyone could play anywhere, and all they need is a ball and a goal or a ball and a hoop. So, if you look at everything in general, especially with hockey, right? Hockey is one of the most expensive sport. It is because the equipment, the travel, and it's very good in the Northern Europe region. It's good in, you know, the Eastern European region. It's good in Canada, obviously, and it's good in the United States, but it's very expensive to play. because it's a high net wealth individual sport. It really is, just like how, again, football, like if you look at NFL teams, and this has been the fun part. Now I'm gonna get into what has been really cool with the NFL and some NFL teams are doing is they're starting flag football, because all you need now is just a flag and you need a ball. Accessibility. So if you really look at now really transforming the sport in a new region, you have to educate the customer, aka young fans. So that's why now you're starting to see in the Olympics, flag football now will probably be an Olympic sport.
Really?
There's a
Yeah.
reason why, because of accessibility. So that's the cool part of really looking at it. And as the audience understands this, there's so much to going in to get people to become casual fans, to understand the sport, to then educate the sport, to become fans, to then obviously then become customers. And so that's been like my fun journey of what I look at everything is actually true fan growth, and just really going in and getting people. Like I actually took my CEO to Ordr to his first NFL game, and he was on the field, and I'm like, I don't need to be on the field. I've done for 15 years. Like I'm good, right? So, but just being there on the sideline, seeing them go in, and he's like, oh, he's like, goodness, he's like, this is amazing. I'm like, yeah, dude, I've done this for 15 years, man. So it's been like, every day, but just seeing have his excitement in his late 40s, seeing his first NFL game, and just I was around him. He's like, this is amazing. He's like, we're in a major stadium, 60,000 people, give or take. Everyone's in all their branding, and like, yeah, this is what it is. So yeah, that's part of what my journey is too, as well, is not only just from doing bigger deals, but fan cultivation in the new sport and new regions, and really getting people to come together. Because I truly believe sport is where it doesn't matter any of the demographics, it doesn't matter anything at all. You come together as a team for the most part in team sports, like golf, tennis, et cetera, et cetera. But like, I truly believe sport is a way where no matter what, anyone can come together. Everyone's working together to complete a goal, even if they win or lose, but working as a team.
Yeah. It's sports in a sense brings community in a sense. If you're playing or you're watching, like you said, it doesn't matter who you are. You'll come together, you'll start high-fiving people you don't even know, watching a play. It's just it brings that community and everybody's on the same page. I experienced that with jujitsu, far as community. Being there with your teammates, you're all in a common goal to get better, and far as what you do on a professional side doesn't even matter. We don't care. We don't care what you do. We're here on the match training. And the same thing happens when you're playing sports. You're all on the common thing. So that's why people gravitate to it so much. So I understand. I remember when I went to my first Saints game, as Dr. Dan knows, I'm a Saints fan. Even during the old paper bag days, I was a fan. So I definitely understand. And I went there even though we lost all the time because it was something generational in my family. My father loved the Saints. My grandfather loved the Saints. I had a Saints jersey even before I even knew what football was. And so all of a sudden, I'm a Saints fan. And that's what you were talking about earlier. It just works. It doesn't matter if it's football, baseball, etc. So the branding part is, and the funny thing is, you're probably our third person far as on the sports side we've had. We were curious about how technology worked for the NFL. So we had somebody from Tampa Bay. We had somebody from the Vegas Raiders and understanding the alumni side. And now we have you talking about branding and sales and what that brings and everything. And I want to go into if you could tell us about your current initiatives that you have with Order. How does that work on a regular basis? You're saying you're with a hockey team. You just did some partnerships with that. Can you tell us a story about what you're currently doing?
Yeah, no, appreciate this. So one of the things we go back to again of the classification of human beings. There are four ways you classify human beings: demographics. Everyone should know what that is. Psychographics. How is your feeling and beliefs? Post game survey, and this can be anywhere. It could be on a flight. It could be anywhere. That's psychographics, because like, how was your service? How was your experience, and what were your thoughts at that time? But post after that event. Third's geographic. Where are you coming from? Where, are you a local fan? You're driving in, 100 miles from the game, or kilometers if you're overseas, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But the fourth is behavioral. And I'll tell you this, what happened was, again, grad school, very good economics. Economics to me was like cat in the hat. I'm just telling you, the audience, it was like cat in the hat. Like even the chair economics department's like, you're getting 120 where everyone's getting 40s. Like it was very easy. He was, I don't see a lot of students. He's like, you should become an econ degree. I wasn't passionate. Now, ironically, I love economics. I read all about economics now. So go figure. But I was always obsessed with buyer behavior. I always was. Like, what makes people tick to buy stuff? And that was like an inception. That thing just grew in my head, right? And is manifested. So at Ordr, we look at the behavioral. And I'll tell you what we're doing. We're a payment platform. And why is that important? Like, you go in, you buy your tickets, that's card not present. So you buy something through a computer or screen, or, you tap your card to get a beverage or a hot dog, et cetera, merchandise. What we've done at Ordr is we solve the behavioral problem. We now can take all the inputs of everyone's purchase behavior, because we're a payment processor and we're, SOC 2 compliant. We have all the compliances in North America, including the US and Canada. And, we can, we're data secured. We're taking all those inputs from people's behavior, not people what they say, but what they do. And then we're building out consumer fan profiles. Because one of the things, no matter what, when you go into a stadium, arena, field, zoo, theme park, hotel, casino, anywhere, they don't know who's coming in. They might have a loyalty program, and people have to opt in though, right? We're now going through and credit card matching everyone through their consumer journey. So, Renard, I know right now you're going to come to a game here in Seattle, Lumen Field. I know you bought your ticket and you're sitting in section 101. I know that you bought 2 hot dogs, 2 sodas, 2 beers, and the fourth quarter you bought Dippin' Dots. And I know that right there. I built out your consumer brand profile. And we know because we can match your credit card. And people are like, well, people have multiple credit cards. Not necessarily. The average human being has 2.8 credit cards. They usually have the one that they get points or cash back on. I'm a United loyalist. I will always say that. I've been 1K for years, and I got my Black United Club card where I pay $500 a year. I get 11 points every mile, every dollar I spend. Like, I'm using that all the time, but then people have a corporate card and people have a backup card. And so no matter what, though, for the most part, depending on it, you usually use your business card or your primary card. So we are actually tracking and we are building out profiles and then going in and saying, okay, I'll use the Seahawks. For example, come here in Seattle. We can then say, hey, you know what? You generated over $1 million in hot dog sales. You should then look at a hot dog partner that you can brand with that can make sense, that we can go in, not only eating hot dogs at Lumen Field, but then guess what? Maybe work with a grocery store and then do promotions on that. Because there's a propensity for those buyers who are Seahawks fans to go in and buy that hot dog. We're doing this with the Penguins, right? If we're going in, we're seeing that, okay, different opportunities are happening right now at PPG Paints Arena. And we're seeing that people are buying 50-50 tickets. They're buying charitable. They're buying merchandise. They're buying concessions. We're buying tickets. And we're building out everything of who their fan is based off behavioral. And the coolest thing is, I could say this on the podcast because I feel like I'm in the movie The Founder and I'm the old McDonald's brothers. I could tell you guys everything, but the complexity and the barriers to entry and to get the relationships that luckily I've had, that's how we've gone through. We're only a few that are approved through Ticketmaster to process their payments. There's no one really else that can do that, right? And so The cool part is we're now mapping out the consumer journey of when people are parking, when they come in the stadium, what they're spending per, yeah, I'm using football per quarter. And we all have this in our dashboard. And all the inputs we're doing is just from our payment processing. And people are like, you guys have hit lightning in a bottle because everyone wants to know who their customer is. We can solve that now. And that's literally what we've been doing. And that's why this growth of this company has been great. It's been fun. We're solving problems. And I think we're not just a sponsor because we believe in sponsorship. We want to get our brand out there. We want to get in different areas to grow our business. And that's our marketing costs, et cetera, et cetera. But we're solving a problem. And we can solve a problem for all businesses. And no one in this space, especially in sports and entertainment, can do that. And again, if competitors watch, good luck. Go nuts. I challenge you. But I can tell you right now, it's been a fun journey. The growth's been phenomenal. I love what we're doing because we're solving problems, creating solutions, and actually completely believe in what we're doing. And no one's done this before. How I kind of say this, and I'll go one more thing, is like, it's like when the iPhone was kind of out, there's nothing ever like it. And we're now in that new generation that no one's ever done anything like this. And that's kind of why we say we're different from everything from what we're doing. So we're lucky we're talking about everyone in all sports, entertainment, hospitality, not only in North America, all around the globe, and hopefully partnering with other rights holders, teams, hotels, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we're doing right now is one of my main clients I'm working with. And it's been a fun journey so far over the last couple of years.
As somebody who is in the payment space, I will tell you that's fascinating to me because I know that payments and personalization are two things I've done in my career, and I still do. I still work in the payments industry. But just to hear your story, I'm curious when you think about the data that is out there, and the AI piece of it that comes into play immediately when you think about data. How do you see that playing out as in the sports and entertainment industry?
So funny you should mention it. And I'm glad you kind of set this up because we never even talked about this. So we listen to our customers. The one thing we always wanted to do is we always went out to the marketplace before we designed our product. We interviewed over 200 revenue leaders, CFOs, presidents through all my network and through a bunch of people. And we came back with this solution. So you mentioned AI. We created our own AI within our platform that talks with our own data. So if you are a sponsorship person, so you're trying to sell sponsorships, you can actually chat and the data will come back to you. If you are a BI person, hey, I want to know what types of fans came in at around 30 minutes before the game, that can go into it. The finance person can go chat with our AI chat. Hey, we want to know right now how many chargebacks were happening at that last game. They can go into that. The CEO, executive can go in. Can you give me a game day report of what happened in that game? We'll spit out a game day report. And then the ticketing people. What was the ticketing usage of our season ticket holders over the years? Or what about this customer? Or like what this section is? Are we pricing it correctly? They can all chat in. They can see what happened and what's going on. So it's funny you mention AI because now we're doing chat with your data. And now that data set is based on everything off the payments. And that is in our platform. And so it's funny you mention AI, but we have to make the utility of AI. And it can only talk with its own data set that's in there based off all the payments. Great question, though, because I actually believe that we've done this already. And again, through those 5 uses of how teams would use that or rights holders would use that, we're creating those personas based off what they're trying to ask for and making sure that we can answer all those questions. Good question.
Thank you. You are definitely a marketer and an economist because I will tell you those two are a little bit on polar opposite ends. Economist wants to work on data and be very concrete. If the data doesn't exist, it's not real. Versus the marketer who says, I think humans will behave differently no matter what your data tells you. So that's kind of what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, no, I am all about follow the data, follow the behavioral, and then create your marketing. It doesn't like this is why I like people again, when we go into different ways of collecting data through scientific method, there are surveys, focus groups, personal interviews, ethnography. That's great, but that's all qualitative and it's all based on mental state, where it doesn't matter on behavioral, because no matter what, the money's talking, right?
Mm.
Can't argue with your own data. No matter what. There are people who always try to go in, argue with their own data. I'm like, this is what's happening, right? This is what your fans are doing. This is what they're buying. Then we can look at like, okay, if the weather's getting colder, which again, the marketer would be like, okay, cool. Yeah, we got to serve hot chocolate. Well, okay, when do we push that in the game to serve hot chocolate through their app or through messaging boards or whatever? Because then we can actually see it when people are buying and where they're buying in the stadium. There might be one section that's crushing in hot chocolate or coffee, and there's another one it's not. Well, why is that? Right? So again, I am so on data, because no matter what, people can't argue with their own data. They can't. And again, like when people go in, and marketers and business people and sellers and anyone else, you have to take the data, because everyone collects data. This is one problem we found out with a lot of teams. They collect data. They don't know how to structure it. They don't have a whole system to do that. They don't know how to segment it correctly. They don't know how to actually then take that data and apply action to it. I have some teams I've gone like, and there's a couple teams that are very good. I'm gonna tell you, there's a couple teams I'm like, you don't need us. That's probably 2 or 3 in North America. But like, I'll say this though, like, I'm very all about knowing your fan, know what they're buying, know what their behavioral is, work backwards, solve a solution.
I love the phrase you use, Dr. Dan, scholar practitioner, and I can see why you say that.
Yeah, it's been a very, getting my doctorate, I'll tell you, I'll tell you this. I've had 3 catalysts in my life. 3. One, I got married to my wife, Marie. She's made me a better human being, and we've gone on a great journey. Second was getting my doctorate at South Florida, because let's be candid, I was an individual contributor seller. I was a manager. I was executive in all revenue. But then I learned data, and I learned how to use data and apply it to what I'm doing. The third is I got my coach that Renard knows very well, is Tom Cox. And he's taken me to another level completely. And he's been great. And those have been the 3 catalysts in my life. And I tell people all the time, like, find those catalysts to improve yourself. I got the coach, and he's been phenomenal. And Renard, you know that personally, right? And so like, I say scholar practitioner, and this is why I kind of go into this. And I'm going back to your question, Amir. This is why I gave you the mythology. Now I'll give you the practicality. Is many times educators, professors have never worked in industry. I call them eggheads. I do. They're eggheads. They're smart, brilliant people, but they've never been in industry. I went the opposite. I went industry, and then I learned academia. So that's what truly is, or I am a scholar practitioner, because I actually can take academics and apply it and take applied knowledge. And that's honestly where, it's been fun teaching. It's been fun, being a, adjunct professor at undergraduate, graduate levels for a couple universities, Loyola in New Orleans, as you know, Renard's. But, I think that's honestly how I position myself, though, as true scholar practitioner, is taking that academic, that knowledge, and applying it to industry.
I love the moniker, by the way. That's why I resonate with it.
I love that, and I wanted to segue into another part. Now, we're both trying to become, certified coaches, and coaching, is very different. The mindset has to change in that. I know for me, I ask questions in order to solve problems, but coaching is a lot different. And I'm curious from your aspect, Dr. Dant, why do you want to become a coach? What's pulling you into that segment of your life saying, hey, I want to coach others, I want to bring the greatness out of other people?
So there are 3 phases of life. I believe in this. One is you learn your skill set, you learn your craft, right? And you go through, if you're in college, your first few years, you learn your craft, right? You really get good at it. Then the second phase is you become really good at it, right? And then all of a sudden you become the subject matter expert. The third is now share that knowledge. That's where I'm at in life. It's been a fun journey so far, but like this is why I love coming in and coaching people. It's been fun the last couple of years. Not only people want to get in the sports industry, people who are executives in the sports industry, people want to become better sponsorship sellers, and I share my knowledge. And I think, made a lot of mistakes. My book I want to write is how I messed up 1,000 times, right? And there's one again, and I think I'm at that point in my career now where I want to get back. And I think it's kind of that's where I'm at now, is where I've done some really cool things, right? I have, but there's more. Like I still have that fire, right? I still have the fire of like doing some more, but also I want to get back. And I think there's a lot, in my opinion, there's a lot of information out there, right? And we have now, in this time period, the most access to information we ever had. And people can do it, but I don't know how. They don't know how to do it. And maybe they don't know where to start. And maybe don't know they need guidance. And, I get hit up from parents, grandparents, people on LinkedIn. Hey, can you help me with getting a job? I'm trying to figure out how you do this. I'm an undergraduate student. I'm a graduate student. I'm in my 20s. I want to get into sports. Or a parent comes to me. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, there's a method. I can show you how. And I can tell you from my experiences is not only hiring people and building out teams, et cetera. I think that's been my fun part of really going to coaching. And even on LinkedIn, brands are reaching out to me and they're like, we need help with the sponsor strategy. And just going in, I'm like, all right, let's talk. What are you trying to find? What are you going into? And that's why this whole consulting and coaching thing's been fun, because I could take all my experiences that I've learned, I've applied, and now I'm sharing. So that's honestly where I'm at right now. Passion of life is really taking my knowledge and sharing it with the world.
I agree with that. Same thing for me. I think I told Tom and I told other people this when I met Tom and everything. I told people I didn't know I needed a coach until I got one. To be honest, and there's a lot of people like that. There are a lot of people walk around and don't know they need a coach, and I was one of them. So I understand transitioning into coaching. We're both doing that. I'm looking forward to it. Like I say, I still feel like all the knowledge and stuff that we've learned, it's good to give back, paying it forward. I'm very big on that.
Exactly. I didn't want to do catchphrases, but I absolutely agree though with you, Pat. And that's just where I'm at in life right now. And it's fun. I like it. I get asked a lot of people. I've created a lot of new connections and people want to pick my brain and they want to get my knowledge. And my goal is to share that knowledge and hopefully they apply it. Because the one thing about coaching, the one thing about even getting a coach, and I can tell you this, and I'm glad we're talking about this, and everyone on this is like, get a coach. It took me, Tom was lucky number 13. I interviewed 12 others. It wasn't a fit. I was getting sold. I got bought on Tom Cox, and everyone can look at Tom Cox. He's great. He's going to love that we plugged him multiple times, and that's totally cool, and he'll love that. But like, I truly believe everyone needs a style of coaching. And it's not a therapy session. It's like, what are you trying to do? This is a third party that's coming in and giving advice. And it helped me tremendously in this next phase of my life.
Yeah, I think we all three can agree with that. I want to go back to one aspect. There's one key word that you said earlier, and there's relationships.
Well, yeah.
Building relationships is so important. I tell anybody the I wish I would have started in my 20s when I first got in on building relationships. Could you elaborate a lot more on why those key relationships and building those relationships are so important when it comes to your professional side?
Well, I believe this is my opinion, is being authentic, being transparent builds up the speed of trust. And I think people who know me on a personal side, they see that like, how do you have so many authentic relationships? And I'm like, well, I'm just me. and I'm very authentic. Like that's the one thing I think people can say is I think that speed of trust and having those real authentic relationships professionally and personally, I thrive on that. I'm a connector. Like there's one thing, no matter what right now, people need something. I'm like, oh, okay, let me go on my phone real quick. Okay, talk to this person who I've known for 20 plus years. And always check in with people. Don't always go in and just ask for stuff. I know right now, I'll tell you, this was the last book I read when I had my doctorate. I was doing my teaching part. Because once you defend your dissertation, you start doing a couple courses and then you're done. And there's 3 types of people. There's givers, matchers, and takers. I'm a giver. Because guess what? I give and I don't expect anything in return. The majority of people are matchers because they feel guilty and they want to help out because someone helped them. But then there are takers. Everyone knows who the takers are. You get that text message, you get that call. You're like, okay, what does this person want? I'm still nice to them, but I'm aware though. I always say, no matter what, though, if you give, you get back more, but don't have expectations. And that's been a mantra in my life. I think it's always been like that. I think it's been part of my success too, as well.
I'm gonna say I tell other people this: build the relationship first. Business will come organically after that. Don't be the first thing that happens when you meet somebody. It's like, I want to talk about business. What can we do about business? Don't start with that. Build that relationship. Get to know that person. The business will come organically after that. It'll be so much easier.
I say build trust too, because
100%.
trust is part, and I think if you don't have trust, you don't have a relationship. I think if you build that, share your knowledge, be authentic, come in with good intentions, the relationship will naturally flourish. And then opportunities, not so much business, opportunities will flourish. And that's how I absolutely agree with that. But I am very big on trust because once you don't have trust, you don't have a relationship. And once you burn that bridge, it's hard to rebuild that bridge. So I've always been, no matter what, everything is trust. People are coming to me, they say something to me. I'm like, yeah, it's in the vault. It's in the vault. Like, and people know that. People who know me know that. Like I got a lot of stuff that I just keep to myself, but it's always, no matter what, people come to me because they know they can trust me. And then I has that relationship, which then obviously opportunities happen. So I like what you're saying. I kind of put it in my own vernacular.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I want to say one more thing, and I think Amir is going to agree with me on this. On this show, there are certain people that we think of that are black belts in their industry, that they've done great things, they've done the great work, and I have to say, Dr. Dan, and I think Amir is going to agree with me. You are a black belt in your industry. So today, we want to give you a black belt because you are definitely a black belt in your industry. What you're doing, what you've done in the past, and what you're currently doing makes you a black belt. So we want to give that to you today officially. Dr. Dan is now a black belt.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's cool. I thank you, man. It's I hope everyone really, I say so again, I appreciate the conversation. I hope people got value out of this. Yeah, but thank you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Dr. Dan, the few things that struck me. So I'm reminded of Arthur C. Brooks, where he says, crystallized knowledge versus fluid knowledge. You may or may not be familiar with this. But to your point about giving, so I resonate with that just like you and Renard. And I was thinking, how many of us are actually coached that at a very young age? Be a giver, be a giver. We're told about be good, be good, be good. But I think be giver is probably a better substitute for be good. What do you think?
I like that. I think, you know what though? I think some people need to be taught that, and some people are raised by that. And again, that's just nurture versus nature, right? And so that's just my thoughts, but I just have been like this my whole life. I just have been of just like, you know, what can I do to help? How can I help? And not just like fluff. Because I think when you're not authentic and people are just like, oh, that's just words. Right. And so I think that's what I would say to the audience here is just like, if you're going to say that and you want to be a giver, follow through. And then this is one thing too about me, you'll learn this is I under promise and I always over deliver. Always. I mean, just one of those things. I'm like, people are like, hey, I need to talk to someone about this from this team. I'm like, okay, let me see what I can do. And next thing you know, I get them in front of a decision maker. They're like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, oh, Dan recommended me to you. I'm like, and they're like, oh, thank you so much, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just part of me. But no, I like that though, Amir, man. That's cool. I like that. I think if we all become givers, I think the world will be a better place.
I couldn't agree with you more. My experience is exactly like yours, which is the more I gave, the more I received, or at least it feels that way. Every time I receive something more generous than what I was able to give back.
I love it. No, I love it. It's yeah. Again, it goes back to the beginning of self-interest, right? So let's circle all the way back. Okay, beginning of the conversation of this podcast. Everyone's self-interest. It's true. It's economics or self-interest. You are going to do whatever it is in their interest, but you got to figure out what their interests are. My interests are trying to help solve a problem. And that's honestly how I always look at that as my interests of what can I do to help. And that's kind of been my area, because if you figure out everything like is being a giver, helping them solve a problem, listen, research, everything we talked about, then things happen. So it's kind of cool. We just went full circle there. Pretty cool, right?
Birds of a feather.
Very cool, very cool. And that I know we're coming up on time and everything, but we do ask everybody what's their theme music. You travel internationally, so I know you have to be listening to something in the car, on the plane, etc. So what's that music that gets you ready for the day?
I'll tell you this, it's Sam and Dave, Thank You. And it's one of I love Sam and Dave. I gotta tell you this, a little funny story. Before I was born in 1980, so you guys can reverse engineer how old I am. They actually, my mother and father passed away when I was very young. The last movie I saw was Blues Brothers, which is my favorite movie, ironically. And so, all Sam and Dave, all blues, that's my jam. I would say that is so. It's definitely Sam and Dave and the song "Thank You," and it's a really good song, and it always puts a smile on my face. I have a Best of Sam and Dave CD still. I'm that old now, but no, I would say that would be my song, and I thank you for letting me be on your podcast.
No, the pleasure is definitely ours. I'm going to add before we go that The Blues Brothers is one of my favorite movies. I'll be honest. Anytime it's on, I could watch it 100 times and never bored. Never bored.
It's one of those movies. It really is. It's like even when I'm on United, when I fly, if I can't find anything, I'll throw Blues Brothers on. I've probably seen that movie. I'm telling you, gentlemen, I've probably seen that movie at least 50, 60 times. I mean, it's the most watched movie I've seen. They're not even close. You're not one of those repeater movie type people too. I like new movies. You know what I mean? So that says something.
There's something you can't go wrong with some of the classics, and Blues Brothers is definitely one of them. Like I said, I could put it on anytime and I'll watch it completely through. I don't watch it probably the same amount of times as you. It is a great movie. That's for another podcast if we want to talk about movies.
I'll tell you one final thing, very interesting about the Blues Brothers. I was born in Harvey, Illinois, okay, in Ingalls Hospital. The mall scene was in Harvey, Illinois, where they trashed it, and then so it was very
fun fact.
No, my mother told me that, and she said that in my hometown where I was born. But after I moved to Arizona, after very young, but actually, believe it or not, the mall scene was actually in the town that I was born in. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that is very cool.
Really cool.
All right, I know.
As soon as you said something, I started imagining that whole scene again. So I remember that.
Oh, it's just Miss Piggy. You know what I mean? Like, it's great. You know what I mean? Like, there's this Piggy come with that. So no, thank you again. I appreciate everything.
Dr. Dan, it's been great having you. And to our Black Belts and Boardrooms audience, we will see you on the next one.
Yeah, if anyone wants to contact me, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn, Dr. Dan Kaufman, Kaufmann. Or if you want to go on my website, contact me through there is drdankaufman.com.
Awesome, Dr. Dan. Thank you. Thank you. Black Belts and Boardrooms audience, we're out of here.